Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. I'm your host, Jared Sebesta of Taatjes Financial Group, where we build purposeful retirement plans. At Taatjes Financial Group, we believe retirement planning is so much more than just preparing financially. Our goal is to help retirees and pre-retirees steward their time, talent, and treasure. We have the tools and proven process to make sure your retirement plan delivers the greatest purpose, impact, and legacy. If you need help building a purposeful retirement plan specific for your life and your retirement, please give us a call. Our number is 320-222-4236. You can request a meeting online at our website, taatjesfinancial.com. And if you live in West Central Minnesota, just stop by our office. We're located on 19th Avenue Southwest in Wilmer, building purposeful retirement plans. Well, thank you once again so much for joining us today on the show. We're so glad that you are here today. If you missed last week's show, very important show. Ben was talking about how, when it comes down to what is going to happen, what should investors do in light of a good market, a bad market, everything in between. He gave you 3 specific things that you needed to have in your portfolio. And the very first one, I'm not going to give them all away, but the very first one is that you need to identify how much risk you are willing to take. There's 2 more after that. If you missed that show, I highly encourage you to go back and check that out. You can go to our website, taatjesfinancial.com. We have all of the latest radio shows there. You can check us out on iTunes by going to Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. And if you still can't find us, you can go to YouTube and search Taatjes Financial. Find our YouTube channel. You'll see all the playlists there. By the way, all of the playlists from this show, from our podcast, Retire Repurposed, are there. And also any online seminar that we've done in the past, you can find all the replays for those webinars there as well. So lots of resources for you, lots of places to find what we're doing and what we're talking about. So please go check those out. Ben Taatjes joins me on the show here today. What are we talking about today in the world of finances and time, talent, and treasure?
Well, I do want to start talking about kind of last week and kind of what we saw in the markets, Jared. I know we try not to get, I don't certainly want investors to look at every single day in the markets. I don't want investors to become really to the point where their money owns them, and they're worried about their investments, and there's, every day they're checking it or a couple times a day, and that does happen, unfortunately. But what I do like to look at is big trends, and long term is what we're all about. And one of the things that last week and really this quarter has started is really a leading by value investing again. So one of the kind of interesting things we watched earlier in the year was how important. There were 7 big stocks that were driving, the overall S&P 500 rate of return. And those 7 stocks were all technology driven. They were all companies that you'd recognize that have just driven the technology space over the last years. And that leadership kind of ended last week a little bit, and they took a little back seat here this quarter. So to where now value stocks have actually been outperforming this quarter. So I say that all, again, not to make your head spin, but more to get you to realize that, what we were talking about earlier this year about how great these tech and growth names were now has reversed a little bit. People are like, oh, I'm becoming more risk averse and I'm putting more money into those other types of stocks. Really, we don't know. We don't know what's going to lead, going forward. We don't know how the economy is going to shake out. But what we do know is that we need to understand the level of risk in somebody's portfolio. We need, if you're out there listening today, again, we talked about it last week's show, very, very important just to understand what is in your portfolio. Start there, understanding how am I investing and is it accomplishing my goal.
The article you just mentioned, you wrote something up here, and we do this every single week at the beginning of the week. Go to our website, taatjesfinancial.com, and search on blog. You can see the whole write-up there and all the data that Ben was just mentioning. But let's just talk about risk just a little bit. Like what's the process by which that you take clients down to really assess where they are, or maybe continue the conversation where they are, because sometimes that may change depending on, I suppose, situation and market and all those things.
Yeah, that really brings me to what I want to talk about today, Jared, is I think that many investors over time have very short memories, and they tend to forget how cruel math is to an investor. What I mean by that is when we look at the math behind investing, and we fail to recognize that when you lose money, you start in a deeper hole, and it's hard to dig out of that hole. That's a very important concept that I always want clients to remember. So walk with me, Jared. If you had $1,000, you were going to go invest that, and you went and saw somebody, and they said, yeah, we're going to invest that pretty aggressively. And the very first year you take that $1,000, and you have a really rough year in the market, and it goes down 50%. What do you have left?
$500.
Exactly. So now you got this $500, and you leave it alone, and you just say, I'm going to leave it alone. Hopefully it comes back at some point. And the next year you go and you see your financial person, and they're like, well, we get really good news for you. We had a great year in the markets, and we earned 50% back on our money. Now what do you have?
Well, it's not 1,000, 750.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that's the math that you have to walk through as an investor. You say, okay, so math is worse on the way down than it is on the way up, unfortunately. When you look at the math of investing, if you lose 50% of your investment, you now have to gain 100% to get you back to where you were.
Right.
So I think that people need to realize that we have short memories, and I'm not predicting anything. I'm not saying anything about the current state of the economy or anything. I'm just making sure that when I'm having that risk discussion, many times it comes down to how much can you handle and it going down, and then what's prudent. Any time that you look at that math continuum, as I lose more, it takes so much higher rate of return to get you back from that low point. Let's take that one step further, Jared. Okay, so let's say that 50% loss becomes a 55% loss. That's 5% more loss. You now don't have to get 100% to get you back to even. You have to get 122.2%. So just a 5% further loss means over a 22% more in gains just to get back to where you were. And I think that's what many people don't understand with really the math of investing. The bigger the loss, the bigger the rebound you'll need just to get you back to where you were.
We don't want to instill fear in people, I'm sure. That's not the point of what you or we're trying to do with the show. But what is a question people need to ask themselves, or what's the mindset they need to be in a world like, in a kind of a volatile world that we live in today?
Well, I think the reminder is people, again, have short memories. So remember back to where you were, a few years ago when the markets weren't doing well. And you were in this spot where it's like, man, it's a tough spot to be in. We have to be very careful that we remove that emotional part of fear from our investing, but we also have to remove the emotional aspect of greed. To when things are going great, it's like, well, they're only going to get greater. And I think that's what many investors forget, is that when things are going bad, sometimes, they do get worse, but many times when things are getting the worst, it means things could turn around. And when things are doing really, really well, it doesn't mean they have to continue that way. So again, I'm not one that's trying to push this fear idea on people, nor am I saying anything about the current state of the markets. What I'm trying to say is make sure you understand how much risk you're taking, and then ask yourself, with that math of investing, at what point do I start to get kind of uncomfortable with where my account is at?
Well, only about 3 years ago, we had a massive drop with COVID, and so that's, again, a fairly recent reminder. Talk people through kind of what would it look like if they came in. Maybe they're working with somebody, maybe they're not, but talking about this idea of risk and the exercise that we'd work people through.
Well, I think step one is, we got to understand somebody's goals. Many people leave our office and they're surprised. Well, where's the presentation on, what a product sale, or what should I do differently? That first meeting, I call it the uncover session. It's really where I am trying to dig deep into why somebody feels the way they even feel about money, Jared, why they look at risk the way they look at risk. I want to know their goals for their money. Many times I'm trying to make sure that they create a budget so that they can spend more in retirement. Those are the things we're doing. Then we come back and we put together a plan which looks at how much risk that they actually have in their current portfolio. Is the current portfolio accomplishing the goals that they've set forward? And then make necessary adjustments.
All right, Ben, thank you so much. That sounds good. Well, if you need help building a purposeful retirement plan that takes into account the proper amount of risk in your portfolio, now is the time to reach out and schedule a no-cost, no-obligation meeting. Give us a call at 320-222-4236. Request a meeting online at taatjesfinancial.com. And if you live in West Central Minnesota, just stop by our office. We're located on 19th Avenue Southwest in Wilmer. Office hours, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. I'm Jared Sebesta, joining you on this episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.